Hi, everyone. This is Corey Doggs of Action Coach Business Coaching, and I'm excited to have Matthew Schneider, founder and CEO of Building PropTech Inc. with us today. Matthew's entrepreneurial journey has spanned roles such as a fiction novelist and also leading small cap and derivative trades in the stock market. He has 5 years of experience in capital markets and 4 years in real estate tokenization with proficiency in building information management, investments, AI, blockchain, and asset securitization. He has engaged investors, innovators, and industry professionals from around the world in business development, market discovery, and performances like pitch competitions and keynotes. Something unique about Matthew, he is self-taught on almost all his subject matter expertise. He likes to identify industries that align with his objectives and then heavily research, seek incumbents, and apply the knowledge to generate a use case. He's done this repeatedly, whether it's authorship, capital markets, real estate, or technology. In some ways, he's invented a new field or new fields to be an expert in, and now gets to teach others what he's learned. In his downtime, well, Matthew doesn't have downtime. He doesn't commit to downtime. Something that scares the average person, but not Matthew. He finds solace in working around the clock. If he needs to stretch his legs, he'll lift weights or take a walk, preferably in the cold. But even then, he has a business on his mind all the time. And occasionally he'll sit down at the piano, but to refresh his mind so he can get back to work. Something he's proud of. He's inspired other people to take action, to act. There's something incredible about seeing others pick up his mannerisms, work on topics that are important to him, redirect their paths, and achieve something. From his events, people have formed new ideas, created new relationships, and accomplished many things, and that's really cool. With that, it's my pleasure to welcome Matthew to the show today. Hello, Matthew.
Hello, Corey. Good afternoon.
All right. So first question I want to turn over to you is tell us more about your journey, kind of where you grew up and personal side of things, and what kind of led you to where you're are today.
Well, I spent my whole life in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Small town, not too many exciting things going on and not too many people going off the beaten path. So when I was 17 years old and published a novel, it caught some attention. Folks said, "Oh, wow, you're going to become an entrepreneur. That's so exciting. You become an author." Not that authors make a lot of money, but good for you. Ambitious. And after publishing that, I learned that people don't make a whole lot of money, and 17-year-olds writing books don't really know how to write books. So I kind of dropped that and I got into music, something I've been passionate about for many, many years. And it's still creatives, right? Going from writing to music.
Oh, yeah.
So I was producing music and putting it out there, getting feedback, trying to essentially find product market fit for my music. And I didn't quite reach that point. And so it was around my graduation from high school that someone said to me, "You should start trading the stock market with us." And this is something that still gives me an emotional roller coaster to this day, jumping in on trades. And
Question. So you wrote a novel and had this music passion in high school.
Correct. Yep. So I published a 90,000 word novel through a New Jersey publisher my sophomore year of high school. And it's an accomplishment.
Yes.
It's something I gloss over. It feels like it was so long ago. And quite frankly, the writing proficiency is a little questionable, but it showed that I could put time and effort into something on my own. I was skipping homework to write a book. I think that's cool. And that's something that I've done repeatedly, right? I skipped out on college to first trade the stock market, but then get into real estate and technology and tokenization. So I guess it's quite characteristic of me to try different things and just go all in and see if I can accomplish something in doing so, even if the odds aren't in my favor or if at the time it seems a little impulsive. So I'd gone from music to the market, took some trades, lost a lot of money, made some money, but lost all of it eventually, and needed a better market to get into. And that's when my cousin had mentioned to me about commercial real estate, because he was part of what's called a real estate syndication. So investing with a group out of Milwaukee. And I thought this was really interesting, a better market to be in than trading It's got a lot more stability and you see a tangible impact, but it's also an industry with a lot of problems. And with a problem solving mind, I went in there and I thought, oh, we could start creating software for these different issues. We could start engaging more people in investments. And that began what's now been a 4-year journey of research, development, building a product, taking it to market, getting large properties on board, innovating, and now international expansion.
Wow, it's amazing. And I don't, you don't need to tell us your age, but you're pretty young yet.
I am.
So
I
you
am,
accomplished a lot
but
of things, done a lot of things
yeah.
already, which is exciting.
Right,
Okay.
right. I was fortunate to have been an entrepreneur early on, so I've accrued a number of years despite still being young.
Do you have any hobbies?
Well, piano, I would definitely
Okay.
include in there, and I'm a big athlete, but still an athlete of unique type, right? I'm not. I wasn't the generic football team or
Mhm.
soccer team type of person. In the intro, you said I like the cold, and that's very true. I made sure that people know about that because when I tell them, yeah, I love to put on shorts and head out when it's 0 degrees out and go hiking and just walk around in the snow and see if I can endure brutal conditions, it catches people off guard. But it's athletics. I was inspired by Wim Hof, the Iceman, who was swimming under sheets of ice and doing handstands on mountains. And hopefully I get to that point eventually.
Okay. So you like to adventure also, don't you?
Absolutely. Keeps
Okay.
things interesting.
Okay. Next question is, how did you get to where you are now professionally?
Well, recapping the journey, trying to be an entrepreneur, not sure what industry to really go all in on until I found real estate. And even then, I've pivoted a few times in commercial real estate, trying to figure out if I'm going to build something, what is it going to be? What are people going to pay for? And this is something, even when you're established, you realize that you're wrong because you might find one, but you don't find another customer. And suddenly you hit a roadblock. So getting here through my professional career has been a lot of experimentation and trying to figure out what I like, what I can monetize, and then what's sustainable
Hmm.
and growable and scalable, and trying to balance all of these components. And if you figure it out, it is the $1 billion question, right? And that's
Mhm.
how you figure out that you've built a business that can achieve something great in terms of impact and valuation. And I'm continually solving that. There's so many moving parts, but I've definitely made headway from all my years of researching the industry, researching the types of people in this, understanding my customer, and then building a product that satisfies their needs. So it's been a patient process getting here. I wish more happens along the way, and there's a lot of exciting milestones, and maybe eventually I'll have that feeling of overnight success. But it's been just working day and night literally, that was another part of the intro where I'm always giving up time and thinking about what happens next. And if I'm not, I get a little anxious, like, oh, I feel like I should be working right now. So it's been an evolution for sure.
So you have a hard time sitting still.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot on our shoulders as entrepreneurs, and this is an exciting time, in my opinion, especially for commercial real estate. I compare it to the industrial revolution for capital markets. And when you frame it that way, it seems like, oh, I've got to act now because things are going to happen and they will happen without me if I'm not always at the front. So I'm always pushing myself to be active.
Yeah, I like to think of the innovation curve, the bell curve. You want to be on the front side of that, which it
Right.
sounds like you're knocking on that.
Right. And with all the big news, I always feel like, oh, I might be falling behind. Something big is happening and I
Mhm.
got to do a little bit more and catch up.
All right, next question. Leadership's a big component of all of our lives in some way, shape, or form, and we all have different styles. How would you describe your leadership style?
Well, there could be a lot of definable leadership styles, and what that means, I guess, could be different to everyone. You know, if you're asking about centralization or decentralization, like for me, I tried to decentralize. We all run into the issue of trying to find good people to decentralize with. And as a startup founder, if you're not giving away equity or if you can't compensate with salary, it's kind of difficult to decentralize and you become more of a centralized leader. Then there's, you know, the personality types. If you are a little bit more aggressive or passive, and if you can find the nice middle ground of being assertive, I try to be assertive as best of as I can. Um, you know, you have your stereotypical entrepreneur CEO types. Steve Jobs, everyone thinks of him like, oh wow, he was really bossy and that was effective. I'll be a Steve Jobs type of leader. um, then there's examples of entrepreneurs who are a little bit more laid back, and actually this leadership could be applied to war, politics, business, and you
Mhm.
see such a spectrum. And I try to research effective traits of many leaders who prioritized agility and speed and making decisions quickly. Uh, Actually, I resonate a lot with that. I try to be I try to set ambitious goals and let that inspire people and make sure
Mhm.
that there's a mission aligned with what we're doing. And oftentimes that gets people to act. I don't have to micromanage them. I don't have to push them. We know what we're striving towards, and we're willing to take some sacrifices to get there because the vision that I have laid out is strong and within reach. Right? If I can paint a picture that what we're working towards is within reach, you will definitely get people to um, rise up and work alongside you. I guess to, you know, put a cherry on top and make sure that I give the best answer possible, what are some of the leadership types that you've seen that maybe you categorize people into?
Well, I think emotional intelligence is so important, probably more now so than ever. I know I was talking with another business owner and I asked him the same question. He grew up in the 70s and 80s and he was kind of laughing about back then. It was like my way or the highway, right?
Hmm.
It was all about telling, and not having those some of the soft skills. But I think just the way things have evolved after COVID and this and that, that I think the human component's always been important, but people are striving to learn more how to make better connections, how to better inspire people, how to lead by example. And not I heard this years ago. I like to say this quote, I forget who said it, but good leaders make people like them, and great leaders make people like themselves. Because it's all about getting people motivated and on the same page to accomplish the task, right? So um, there's a balance there, but I'm more of a quiet leader, and that works for me. Doesn't work for everybody, but that's why everyone has a different style.
For sure, for sure. The getting people to like themselves, I, I I think that's something that I do strive towards because and it's sort of reflected when I get people to pick up on some of my traits. You know, I do things that I think are positive for me, and if I can get others to pick that up, naturally they would do that if they think that it's the right choice for them. And so hopefully by one leading by example, but doing stuff that's good for me and ultimately good for other people, you know, they adopt that and for alignment it really works because it's a sure way to know that we're all on the same path.
And even values, being clear on your values, because being, shining a light on them will attract more of those people. And then once you have more of the right people on the bus, it's easier to lead.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay, tell us more about your business. Kind of who do you work with? What do you do?
Well, I'm in commercial real estate and we have a data management and a tokenization platform. And the tokenization is what usually gets people to raise an eyebrow. They say, what is that? And why is it important? Why have I seen that in the news recently? So I'll start with the really basic stuff. Data management. Commercial properties are full of data, and that data needs to be collected, stored, and used really intelligently. Everything from early stage engineering, architectural engineering and designing, to when you are financing, insuring the property, to handing it over to the next owner, or facilities and management. Lots of great data points that need to be collected compliantly. They can be what's called structured, so taking numbers and preparing them for AI, right? AI has to be taught, and so you have to figure out what's going in, what's being calculated, and what are the answers that I'm getting coming out. So data management has become really important for us. Built into this is what's called an appraisal model. So based on documentation coming in for these commercial properties, we can start to assign a price tag. And that price tag can be, it essentially qualifies this new investment model that we have, or new investment technology, through tokenization. And that's a big word. We could call it securitization, or we could just call it modern digital investing in these properties, but doing so with great security, great transparency, and almost like a stock ticker for real estate. And right now that doesn't really exist. So to be able to price the real estate and streamline, what's happening on the back end with the real estate developer, and then delivering an investment product to investors or to financial institutions, and giving them something that becomes risk mitigated because T's are crossed, I's are dotted, and they're using the best technology to build and manage these properties. So that's what we do on a day-to-day. Tokenization itself, I do recommend that people add that word to their vocabulary, because it's become a little bit more prominent, and I think it's going to keep up, especially in finance. You see that everything is being tokenized: equities, bonds, real estate, art. It's really valuable to have this digital format of ownership, especially because it allows for more streamlined, more frictionless forms of payments and transactions. And we'll see how that becomes really empowering for, say, borderless loans, or a little bit more liquidity, new ways to collateralize an asset, some things that are a little bit more in the weeds of capital markets. But I call it the industrial revolution for capital markets. And that should paint a picture, whether you understand the technology or not, the scale to which things are transforming.
So with the commercial real estate and investing in tokenization, is it safe to say that this model would allow the common person to invest in real estate?
That is one use case that we're looking into. It is easier said than done, for sure.
Okay.
The Securities and Exchange Commission really has a lot of influence over who invests. So even if you have great technology, they're going to be looking at income for a lot of folks and saying whether or not they can invest into private market deals. And that exists because a lot of these private markets, so you have public markets, this is Apple, this is Microsoft, stuff that's traded on a stock exchange. And then you have private markets, and private markets are a little bit murky, they're opaque. And that means they can be a lot more risky. Hopefully, with our method of adding transparency, this removes a lot of risk among some other benefits, and does allow smaller investors to confidently and compliantly invest in something like commercial real estate, which has been shown to be a really stabilized and an asset class with a lot of income opportunities, whether it's appreciation or dividends or tax benefits. So we hope that it does get more people involved. But even for the large investors, it has its benefits, and we're seeing some more interest there. Product market fit, perhaps hinting at it. We'll see if we get there, but down the road, for sure, smaller investors. And I think it would be great to help people build wealth.
Okay. When did you realize you had the confidence that you could just start this thing up and get it going and start building it?
Well, fortunately, I was making decisions faster than I was thinking them through because I would say I have not accrued all of the confidence that I need to,
Mhm.
feel warm and cozy about entrepreneurship. I don't know if, you ever reach that because as soon as you're all caught up, you have bigger challenges and objectives in front of you and you're not prepared for them. So you're never reaching utmost confidence in your ability to pull something off, but you're going to pursue it anyways. So I was just really excited about what I could do, and I did it. And I recognize the trend now. So, being comfortable with the uncomfortable, that's I'm sort of familiar with that now. And even if I don't feel like I have all the resources or skills I need, I'll still take it on anyways because I have figured out that I will continue to figure it out along the way.
Well, that's the key to growth is being uncomfortable because growth does not occur in a comfort zone, right? So,
Right, right. And I was quick to adopt that growth mindset, even if it meant I would be continually setting myself up for some risky and complex and difficult situations.
but I still think back to you were a sophomore in high school and you wrote a 90,000 word novel. I mean, they had to be uncomfortable.
It in some ways it was. That was my first exposure to pitching, and I pitch all the time nowadays. Sometimes verbally, but a lot of times just in messages, right? Sales outreach, if you will. And I went through so many agents and publishers trying to figure out who's going to onboard a 17-year-old. And
Mhm.
eventually I found who I was looking for. But yeah, it was not fun getting those rejection messages, and I got a lot of them.
Okay, next question. So if you could go back, let's say you're just out of high school and you were jumping into the stock market, right? Trading. You can go back to then. What would you change, if anything, or do differently?
I would be a little bit more careful about who I was working with. I wish I had been quicker to building up emotional intelligence. I was a little naive. I don't know how you can
Yeah.
be not naive at a young age, but I wish that it was something that I had figured out earlier because now I feel like I'm well equipped to identify who I want to work with and who I don't. But it would have been much, much uh, more helpful at a younger age, especially when there was financial loss
Mhm.
associated with that. So if I could, I wish that I was just doing more to socialize and learn about people and learn about psychology because it that sort of relationship building and understanding people never becomes not useful. Right.
Right.
It's something that you continually use. So maybe I'm not in the market right now or whatever skills I picked up at the time, but I'm still reading people. So I wish I got a little bit better at building relationships and reading people or understanding people's hidden intentions a little bit
Well,
earlier.
and like nowadays, so many folks are just on their phones and messaging, and there's a lot less of this face-to-face type thing, right? And it's hard to get to know someone and feel their energy and read their body language if you're just messaging and texting, right?
Right, right. And it's a big issue for Gen Z, and we'll see what happens as a result. If because when you have a generation of people who are not good at reading emotions, there's going to be some snakes in the grass, and
Yes.
that's really risky. People who take advantage of what is could be considered a more socially naive generation.
Yeah, great point. Okay, so there's lots of myths out there that the general public has on entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs. Are there any myths that you like to dispel?
I answered a similar question, I think it was like 2 years ago now, and I'm going to stick by the answer.
Okay.
There is not a whole lot of glory to this. I know that that's the way that entrepreneurs and CEOs make it seem on LinkedIn. And we have to do that because we are looking for customers and investors, and you want to have a good aura, as the kids say these days.
Mhm.
Something that seems like you're a positive individual. And I'm not saying I'm not positive, but you have to certainly keep up a character, a persona, and show that, hey, even if I'm going through terrible trials and walking on glass, I'm okay with it. All right, guys, you can work with me. So, I mean, there's a lot of struggle. There's not a whole lot of glory, even if that's the public perception of it. It is something that is really going to test you. And, we can have our confirmation bias and say, well, look at these CEOs who are on their yachts. And it's like, it's one in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and in terms of people on the earth, 1 in a billion, right? So it's something that is going to push you to your limits, every sort of limit, physically, physiologically, psychologically. You'll wake up with stomach aches in the middle of the night wondering, what have I just done? And your mind will play games with you, and financially you'll be at a loss. But if for some reason that is of interest to you, certainly put up with it just in case you do get to accomplish something great.
All right, thanks for that. That's spot on, right? It's not all glory, and oftentimes, oh, you're a business owner, you're rich, we don't have to work hard, and that's not true at all, right? In most cases. All right, next question. What is one or a few most interesting insights you've learned or advice you've received recently that you'd like to share today?
Great insights recently.
Or just what comes to mind. Doesn't have to be recent necessarily.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been so exposed to new experiences in the world as I've started to travel it. I think keeping an open mind, and I saw a great quote and I liked it so much that I think I put it on an Instagram caption, which is that an open mind is always a frontier. And there's a learning curve when it comes to entrepreneurship, and you reach a point where you think you have it figured out, and that is usually the indicator of a cliff is coming, that you will have a reality check. And I had if you can be self-aware enough to recognize, okay, I might be on the right path, but that doesn't really mean anything. And I've got to stay humble, and I just need to put my head down and keep working and make sure that I build a strong foundation and try not to fly too close to the sun, even though I'm on this path towards success. That'll set you up really well. And a good example of this is recognition for your achievements. I think so I pulled this from a Robert Greene book, Mastery. You want people to admire that you're a really hard worker, not that you have accomplished a lot. And in the beginning, that's important. There's a certain charm that comes from being in the limelight. Like, hey, look, I'm accomplishing things, you want to associate with me. But there's a certain what would be the right word? A curse to that as well. And I think at the end of the day, you want to be known as someone who stayed grounded and worked and researched for a long time. That's probably a better path. And you will avoid that fall off where like, oh, hey, I'm super relevant. Another great example is like anyone who ends up on the Forbes cover is usually in some sort of criminal trouble within like a year. It's very easy to be recognized and, oh, you're accomplished, but sometimes that's an indicator of a maturation curve.
It makes you think of professional athletes when you speak of that, as that they're in the limelight all from probably high school and college to the pros, and then their body breaks down, they get old, they retire, and they're not in the limelight anymore. They have a hard time adjusting to that. A lot of people do. So, yeah, interesting. All right. What is something new that you want to learn outside of work?
Different cultures. Exploring the world to the best of my abilities, with being so financially caught up in the world of a startup and trying to support the business and bootstrap. I would love to make it to new countries. It's something that has come to fascinate me so much, especially the urban planning, because I'm in commercial real estate. I love seeing the contrast in architecture, the contrast in civil engineering in particular, where some cultures or societies prioritize public transportation, others road, some greenery, others concrete, and seeing that and learning about it and learning about the history of these places. And it really has a lot of influence on the people themselves, how they act, how they travel, what they eat. And I like absorbing that and just being familiarized with it. There's a unique element, and it really pulls you out of the, if you live in one place for a while, you can become a little bit closed-minded. So getting out into the world and going to Hong Kong was a great example of this for me, where, I mean, China and the US, that's really sharp contrast.
Mhm.
And it helped me realize a lot of new things. And I started to question some things I grew up with and realized, oh, man, it would be really nice if I could use a train to get around, because that's what I used in Hong Kong. And you come back to the US and it's like, all right, time to hop on the freeway. And that, people have mixed opinions about public transportation, but I found it so convenient in that case.
Yes,
So it's
I
just
love it.
interesting exploring the world and learning more.
Well, you've traveled some, and I know that you have a discussion coming up with some folks in Japan you'd mentioned before we hopped on the interview, and yeah, you're not just like United States type based. You're talking to people all over the world with some of this technology, right?
Absolutely. So I've called into 3 dozen countries at this point. Earlier today, I was talking to someone from Lagos, Nigeria. Um, in a few months, 1 month, I'll be in Boston, which is not too different from Wisconsin. After that, I'll be flying out to Hawaii for a pitch competition, flying from Hawaii to Fukuoka, Japan, which is called the Silicon Valley of Japan,
Hmm.
and then flying back to Hong Kong, where I'm now incorporated, and I'll be doing some business, speaking on a panel, participating in their FinTech week. On my way back, I'll be stopping in a South Korean airport, and hopefully I can pick up a knickknack or two. Um, and, stopping in an airport is one thing, but the language completely switches. You're going from Japanese to Chinese, well, in this case,
Mandarin.
Mandarin, to Korean, and then back to the U.S. So it's, I mean, yeah, I'm honored to be traveling in all these different places and doing business and meeting different people, different backgrounds. But it's also a really great proof of concept for what we're doing, that people from around the world want to talk about this, talk about tokenization, talk about real estate, talk about the changing tides in capital markets and democratization and optimization.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing, and it feels like things are just getting rolling, right?
Yeah, it's exciting times, and it makes me want to do more. Like, oh, the whole world is moving on without me. I need to
Mhm.
travel more. I need to get more money. I need to get out there and build my business.
Okay. All right. So looking ahead the next 1 to 3 years, which is 3 years is a long time in all of our lives right now, especially with the pace of technology advancement. But what do you see as your number one area of growth and development in the next 1 to 3 years
For the business,
for the business?
I think it is the international expansion, because it's so important to creating borderless payments, which is sort of the purpose of putting investment products and finance on the blockchain, where it does create sort of a borderless economy. You can get loans from different places. You can exchange currencies. A good example of this is that I can use my Visa card when I travel internationally, but to do that with investment products, that doesn't really exist right now. It's a little bit
Mhm.
tricky. So building up our use cases around the world, while we will be adding a lot of US properties and working with US real estate developers to engage investors from around the world who want access to US commercial real estate, that's really cool. To be applying our technology to non-US real estate developers, that's also really cool. And to offer new standardization and new technology, especially to emerging markets,
Mhm.
and to offer this institutional grade product. I think that's cool to be influencing how other economies are growing, and hopefully we have something that demonstrates a lot of value add to the communities around the world that we're serving. So international expansion is probably one of my biggest priorities, and what I expect to change the most in the next 1 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's wow. I can kind of see it even just talking to you. All right, now the opposite of that, what do you see as your number one challenge being um, hurdle making that happen?
I think it comes down to people, building a team, building teams that are local to the regions that I am serving. I mean, it's
Mhm.
hard enough to find great people that you want to work with and to build an executive team and then teach those people how to hire and how to lead. And you go from an organization that has 5 people to 25 to 50, and then doing that in every country that you want to serve. I can't say that I have a really solid approach to how that will be done right now. And it's one of those things where maybe I'm thinking a little bit, or acting a little bit faster than I'm thinking, where I know that we have to expand into these countries. I don't know yet how we'll manage that from, a people perspective. But if we can figure it out, we'll have an international network of folks under our brand name of building and helping to push the adoption of our technology. It gives me a big responsibility, one that I'm willing to take on and very excited about. Not too many
Mhm.
people have an opportunity to lead that way, but it's going to be challenging. You got different time zones, different cultures, different screening processes, different governments, so many problems to tackle.
All right, next question, and we'll then start wrapping up. But what advice do you have for the entrepreneur, the startup and or business owners out there who are trying to do it all by themselves?
Well, you can do it by yourself. You can be a solo founder. So right now I am a solo founder. Um,
Mhm.
Now I'm surrounded by really great advisors, and so it doesn't feel very lonely. So if someone is trying to do it by themselves, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you can acknowledge some of your weaknesses and say, if I really had to, I'd like to delegate this, or I'd like
Mhm.
someone with a little bit more expertise to step in, do it. Definitely do it. And that has been so resourceful to me, especially as a young entrepreneur, where I can't say that I have 25 years with CFO responsibilities, but I can find someone who does. And now, when I present my team, I can say, we have decades in this and decades in that and experience here. And we worked at this company. And I can start saying we and use the collective knowledge of my team to back up anything that I am presenting. And that has been very useful for working with customers and investors, but also driving the company forward. People bring great wisdom, and I would like to add more. Of course, it's a balancing act. What are we looking to compensate, and who are these people? Who will they be in 5 years from now?
Mhm.
Challenges bring out different characteristics in people, but I certainly encourage people to add to the team.
Now it's time to give some shout outs if you'd like. So obviously there's been people that have influenced you on your journey. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, my biggest pivot as a company was because of Jonathan Chambliss, who is the CEO and founder of Elevator Labs. We say that every building needs an elevator. It's sort of like the backbone, the spine of a building. And his role bringing software to what we're building certainly fulfilled that. Elevator has been an essential part to building. And it's sort of funny using these ambiguous real estate terms as our company names.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, super useful. I spent years trying to figure out where we could fit into tokenization. And he said, look, we've got a product that we're working on. You can license some components of it, and this will bring you years ahead. And he recognized that I was willing to adopt that I wanted to stay on the cutting edge and work closely with him. And it's been an amazing relationship ever since.
Right. Thanks for sharing that. Now, how can someone contact you if they want to learn more about kind of your business, your services, your technology, and the things you're working on?
So easiest way would be www.building.inc, spelled like incorporated, INC. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. I would recommend that people look up Matthew Schneider on LinkedIn, and you'll see some of my posts. I love it as a tool. It's been so great for obtaining new exposure. It's so interesting how the algorithm works on there. I'll put something out that says, hey, I'm going to be in this city at this time. And I have people that I've never met before say, oh, this is really cool. I didn't know we're in the same industry. Let's meet up. Like I did that more recently with my planned travels to Japan, where I wanted to find people who were in Fukuoka already in real estate, message them, and now we have meetings set up. And I think that's amazing. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active, and you'll see the things that I'm working on and that I'm talking about. And I would love to engage and see what relationship begins.
The power of LinkedIn. And I actually had someone reach out to me today, or actually Friday, from Arizona, that found me on LinkedIn, and I wanted to have a quick chat. So yeah, we did. It was great.
It's an underutilized tool, but it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. So it was a pleasure meeting with you and learning more about your journey and where you're taking things and the impact that you're hoping to have, Matthew. And thanks for being on the show.
Yeah. Thank you, Corey. Take care now.